All right, welcome everyone. In this lecture, we're going to go ahead and talk about dictionaries in Python. So dictionaries, as I mentioned before, think about it kind of like a locker room, right? And all these locker rooms have a lock with a corresponding labeled key already. Well, person is a dictionary that is utilized to describe a specific person. This person has locks of name, age, and city. So those are the labels, right? Well, when we call those names or we call those specific keys, they're going to open up the locker and release the value of Alice, 30, or New York. Let's take a look at our dictionary being printed out here. We're going to utilize Python 3, 2.4, and then print the dictionaries script here. So we can see our dictionary being printed where we have our three keys and our three values. So three key value pairs. All right, awesome. Now, what's so special about dictionaries and different from list and strings? Well, list and strings are iterable objects, meaning that you can iterate through them from left to right. Dictionaries are not. Dictionaries provide instant access, meaning the moment that I know what value it is that I want from a dictionary, it is instantaneous by grabbing it out of the dictionary. I don't have to loop through it necessarily, as long as I know what I'm looking for. Well, let's take a look at a couple of examples here on how to access some values out of a dictionary. So for example, if I wanted to grab the name out of a dictionary, I have two separate methods here. I can grab the name by saying person, calling the square brackets, and passing in the key of name. Well, when I execute my script now, we can see that the name Alice populates inside of my terminal, or excuse me, my shell. Well, what happens if I were to call something that doesn't exist within my dictionary? Let's call this height, right? Maybe the height is something that's included inside of the dictionary. Well, when I run this, we get an error saying, hey, this isn't included inside of your dictionary. Um, you're trying to access a value that's not there. Well, that's true. And sometimes we may want our program to throw an error, but typically you want your programming to be very dynamic and flexible. With that said, instead of utilizing square brackets, if you were to utilize the .get method and then passing height, you would see that the code executes properly and the value that we get printed into the shell is none. So utilizing the .get method won't throw an error. Instead, it will return none. There's a couple of other tricks to .get. You could also pass a default value, but we won't get into that in this lecture. So let's actually grab the correct key here. What we want is age and execute our script. Now we can see that name has a correct name of Alice, which we utilize by accessing our dictionary through square brackets. And then we see age, which has the correct value, which we utilize using the .get method. .get is a method that belongs to dictionary types, and that's why we utilize it as a fair-word function with an open and closing parentheses. All right, let's take a look at our next example. Well, what if I wanted to add or update a value? Well, in this case, we're going to go ahead and add a new key value pair here. Let's go ahead and let's see what our person has name, age, and city. Let's go ahead and add a happy attribute here. Or let's add an email attribute. Let's go ahead and say, hey, I want to add an email attribute. Well, this doesn't exist yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a key as if it were with a square bracket, but because this doesn't exist, I'm going to use an assignment. And we know that this is an assignment because of this equal sign here. And what I'm going to assign here is going to be, let's go with the classical fr@fr.com. Well, now when I execute my code, it seems like we still get a none, and that's happening because of line 43. But let's go ahead and update an existing key. Currently, we see that the city is New York. Maybe this person ended up moving to somewhere like California. We would utilize the same method. We would say, hey, city. Now we want this person to live in California. All right, one of them is assigning a new key value pair. The other is accessing an already existing key and just switching its value for a new one. Well, now when we execute our code, we can see we have our dictionary with Alice with the age of 30. The city is now California instead of New York. And we have a new key value pair of email. Great. In this exercise, we're going to talk about how to remove an item from this person dictionary. So there's a couple of ways to do this. We could either utilize it doing the pop method, or we could utilize the delete keyword. Well, let's go with pop first. We're going to remove the email here. I'm going to say, hey, I want person.pop. I'm going to pass in email. Let's look at what happens when this executes. Well, now we can see the person dictionary after pop only returns the FR at FR value. Well, that's happening because the pop method returned a value and we assigned it to person. So if that's not what we want, we would just remove that person equals, which is doing a variable reassignment. And now we can see in person dictionary after pop, we have our original dictionary with the email being removed from it. The other method is utilizing the delete keyword. And in this case, we're going to utilize it to remove the city. We're going to use it by calling del. We're going to call person and then city. And now when I execute my script, we can see first, we remove the email, and second, we remove the city. All right, so there's our two methods, pop and delete. Now we can check if a key exists within a dictionary as well. Maybe all I want to do is I want to print if the key of name exists within my person. When I run my script, we can see that it evaluates to true. Now, what happens if I were to put Alice here? We know that that's the value of the key. So would that evaluate to true as well? We're getting a false here. Huh. Well, why is that? Well, notice that we're utilizing the in keyword. And we've utilized the in keyword in other iterable objects. But we said that dictionaries weren't iterable. Well, what Python does in this case, when we're trying to run a simple in statement or we're trying to figure out something that requires some sort of iteration, is it grabs all of the keys and turns them into a list. So in this case, when I say in, it says, well, I have to interpret the person dictionary as a list, so I'm only going to grab the keys. And we see name, we would see name and age appear in this case, not the values. Again, if I execute it with age, I'm going to go ahead and clear my terminal first. It's getting a little messy. Now I'm going to run my script. We could see that it says true. All right. And then finally, what if we wanted to see the length of our dictionary, right? Well, I want to see how many key value pairs are inside of a dictionary. So I could, again, utilize one of my list methods, which would only interpret my dictionary as a list. So I could do this utilizing the len keyword or function, excuse me. I believe it's a method, I apologize, and pass in person. Now, when I do this, I can see it highlighted red. I'm not sure why that's happening. I think it's just having trouble updating. So this is going to interpret all of my keys as a list, count them, and return a numeric value. I apologize, everyone. It seems I'm having a little bit of an issue with the shell here. Let me try to create a new one. Hopefully this isn't an issue we're all running into. All right, looks like it's having some trouble reconnecting. There you go. We are back and ready to go. I'm gonna change directory back into my 2-data types and execute my script utilizing Python 3 with 2.4 dictionaries. And now we can see the number of items in person is 2. And that is true because I deleted 2 of my other keys. Now we see name and age being placed in my dictionary. And that is it for dictionaries. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll see you again shortly.